Hello, everyone. My name's Kyle Camerlinck with Taiter Realty. Today, we're going to talk about the state of the home market here in 2026 in Jupiter. So, kind of what we're seeing right now is that buyers are being a little more considerate, a little more careful in the homes that they're making offers on. They're actually doing their research, running comps, and making educated offers rather than just making blind offers in order to win the bidding war like they were after COVID times. Sellers can no longer price high and leave room for negotiation because, in my experience, we're seeing buyers not even make an offer on the home if the price is too high. If they even go to see it, a lot of times they won't even go see it if it's too high. So we've been really encouraging our buyers to at least go see the home and realize that price is negotiable. However, that's kind of what we're seeing. They don't even want to see it. They don't think it's worth the time if it's not priced appropriately. So the era of leaving your home or leaving room for negotiation, I think, is over, especially in these homes around 500K to a couple $1 million. So right now our median sale price is 656K. That's going to take into consideration all the condos, townhouses, everything like that. The median home price for single family is right around $1 million now in Jupiter. This brings it down about 8.3% year over year, and with an average of 67 days on market and 95.1% sale to list ratio. So if it's listed for $1 million, they're selling for on average 95% of that, about 950 grand. So don't let these stats fool you. It makes it seem like I think sellers just need to be a little more realistic, and it's really depends on the market. This is taking into consideration all the condos and townhomes, like I said. So condo market had a very rough year, and I think that's pulling down the total real estate market numbers. So as I said briefly in the intro, the biggest seller mistake in 2026 is overpricing your listing. Like I said, the buyers aren't even coming to see the house. There's no leave room for negotiation because now the buyers just don't want to waste their time. They're locked in at a lower rate, a lot of them. So if they're like, oh, I'm going to go in at a higher rate, they're going to look for something that's going to make them have to move. A lot of these people don't have to move. It's more of a want. And if your price is too high, then they're not even going to come leave their house to go see it. However, on the other hand, we have correctly priced listings. They're getting a lot of traffic, and I think it's recreating the urgency like you saw during COVID. Sometimes we're even getting multiple offers on some of our listings. However, it's not as common as it was a couple years ago. It is happening when you price appropriately and you still have a lot of good marketing and correct positioning. Another thing I wanted to take into consideration is a lot of people think the market's going to crash because the rates are higher. And I mean, if you look at the last 30, 40 years, the rates really aren't that high. They're mainly back in the average zone, in my opinion. However, Jupiter's kind of immune to the whole interest rate increases. People are buying the right properties when they become available. And the reason that we're seeing that is because 55.5% of Palm Beach County, all property types were all cash. Single family, 50%. Condo sales, 62%. Those are going to be a little higher because financing terms aren't the best on condos with all the assessments and stuff. So we're seeing a lot more cash purchases actually, while smarter investors and finance people and other business owners, when money was cheap, they were going to borrow at that 2-3% interest rate because it's basically free money. Now they're like, okay, we're paying around 6%. Let's just pay cash and not have the loan on this place. And we're really seeing that. It's crazy that more than half the sales are cash. And I've seen that firsthand. I think 80-90% of the deals I work on are cash transactions, not financing. So Jupiter's not generic. So there is two different markets, and I kind of talked about that in the K-shaped recovery in my last video. But while the median home price market, the 500K to 2 million, the condos are getting wrecked. The single family market's, I'd say, flat more or less over the last couple of years, especially when you take into account inflation. However, the luxury properties, the club communities, the waterfront homes are all just ripping, especially the special located properties that these wealthy homeowners know that, hey, this isn't going to come available maybe ever again in my lifetime. So we have the money, let's make the move and let's secure this property. They're not necessarily concerned about the price or the interest rate or things like that. Also, with the limited waterfront supply and the large wealth migration you're seeing down in West Palm, all the office market, the big finance banks, all those institutions moving their capital to West Palm. There's only so many waterfront properties. Where do you think the multi millionaires and billionaires are going to want to live when you're coming down to South Florida? Most likely it's going to be in these waterfront communities on the water or surrounded by other multi-million-dollar homes in places like Loxahatchee Club or Bears Club. So that's why with this wealth migration of 22.5 billion from 2019 to 2023, it's really boosting up that top part of the luxury market here in South Florida. And yeah, just our top feeders are New York, New Jersey, California. We're seeing a lot of California, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Texas. So really all over, I think, with the wealth tax going on in California, all the extra taxes in New York City, it's really pushing some money down here, and we're seeing that firsthand. I kind of already touched on this. The waterfront is a separate asset class, so being that there's very limited waterfront property. Obviously, it's a fixed supply, and we have the demand of all the wealth moving down here. So that's keeping the prices high and basically keeping them immune to the interest rate increases and anything going on in the economy, such as like wage decreases, credit card default rates increasing, things like that. These wealthy buyers aren't facing any of that. They're moving down here in groves and they have plenty of money and they're going to position themselves in some of the best properties in all of Jupiter. So what actually gets a home sold in Jupiter? So we're seeing how the market's flat. It makes it a little harder to make your money back on your home if you've bought in the last couple of years. So it's really going to come down to the positioning. We're going to have to position these properties appropriately. We're going to have to reach those buyers in New York, California, everyone around. And some people won't even consider. I think a lot of buyers, maybe they're looking down at West Palm, they're not even considering Jupiter. But through our advertising, through our social media, through magazine ads, all the other advertising that we're running for the property, they may be like, wow, I didn't know something like this existed in Jupiter. Let's go see that. These wealthy buyers are looking anywhere from Jupiter to West Palm to Boca Raton. They may not have a particular city in mind, especially coming from up north or out west. So the real key is just figuring out who the end buyer we think for that home is going to be, and then running the ads to that select person so that we can get the most traffic through the door, the most showings, and the highest price. So obviously the more educated sellers and the people that have been through the ringer a few times, they know that what matters is the amount of money that they're going to take home after the sale. So obviously we're going to go through the projected sales range, the closing cost estimates, how much you're going to be, how much holding costs you're going to be holding over the that particular period while we're listed, while you may not be using the home, the HOA fees, the insurance, property taxes, all of that matters. That's why it's important that you sell the home for as much money and as fast as you can, because even if you do get a higher dollar amount after sitting on the market for a couple of years, you're losing a ton of money in the process, especially on these luxury homes where your property taxes alone could be a couple hundred grand a year. So it's very important that you get the right exposure, you figure out the net proceeds to the transaction, as well as taking into account the mortgage payoff, the HOA exposure, but also the holding costs over that period. So why work with me? I started a firm here in Jupiter, Florida to really make a difference. I saw some of these agents that just weren't putting their best foot forward for the client, not respecting the client, not looking out for their best interests. And the truth is, a realtor can be you can have the best realtor at one company, but also the worst realtor at the same company. So I wanted to start a company where we have our own values and we really are selective in who we add on the team. And obviously, just starting with me, I was confident in my ability and in my reputation that I wanted to have a company name to back that. And this is something that I want to keep small and selective and really go into detail and put our best foot forward for the client. So what I like to focus on is boat slips, waterfront properties, these luxury homes in these communities. I really understand the community. I grew up on the water here in Jupiter, Florida, and I understand the boating atmosphere, the amenities and everything that you're going to need while you're down here, what draws people to the area. I've been experiencing it for several years. I also have a background in finance, got my master's in finance and management here in South Florida. So I really understand the interest rate dynamic, the borrowing against the portfolios, figuring out what the best need for your money is and where you can really preserve the wealth here and kind of be recession proof in some of the properties that you were to choose here in Jupiter, Florida. If you're interested in reaching me for my services, my number is 561-371-5143. Feel free to give me a call or text or email at kyle@taiter.com, TAITER.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions about the market, where your home value may stand today, or what offer to put in on a potential property down here, that one that makes sense, one that's going to get accepted, and you're not going to overpay for the property, just feel free to reach out. Thanks. Have a great day.